So I'm sure everybody's sitting there wondering about red meat, because I'm on a carnivore diet. What about red meat? We've heard that red meat gets wedged and stuck in your colon, it rots and causes all these inflammatory problems. Well,
You've experimented with meat and actually tried to swallow partially chewed hunks of meat, thinking, I
Yep.
wonder if that'll make it all the way through. And you've yet to see a piece of meat in your ostomy bag. Is that
Yeah, it doesn't happen. Yeah, it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
hey everyone. I just wanted to take a brief moment to talk about the foods that we as humans have a real difficulty breaking down and digesting properly. This list isn't something I've pulled from Google. It's not based on any epidemiological studies or anything like that. This is based on what I can actually see with my own eyes.
He literally can look with his human eyeballs.
One of my subscribers said to me, this isn't a study and this isn't even anecdotal. This is reality. I actually see reality.
Yeah, that's what I said earlier. And he can see
Yeah,
what was
yeah.
digested and what was not digested. This is not even anything that has to be experimented with.
Over 7 years ago, I had an ileostomy surgery, and so I'm without a colon now. I have to wear a bag on my stomach.
They told me, sorry to break it to you, but in the morning, you're going to have to come down and see us. We're going to take your colon out.
And so I see the state that food's in as it would enter the colon, because I'm forced to look at it. I change and empty this thing every day.
Here is the colectomy that he had. That is the bag that his ileum empties into through the ostomy. And if he eats a food that's not digested or takes a medicine that's not digested, he sees that visually in the bag.
And what I found is that plants, certainly in whole form, intact, they don't break down. And however we finish chewing these foods, that's how they remain through the entire digestive tract, at least until it gets to the colon. And then, of course, we reabsorb water, it's condensed down. And so some of these foods you're not going to see the way I see them.
So you're saying that even when you would chew plant foods thoroughly, you would still see evidence of it in the bag. You would see
Yes.
For obvious reasons, you've got the fiber element, which is indigestible for humans. We're not herbivores. We're omnivores, sure, but we are omnivorous predators, specifically hypercarnivore.
Humans, we're hypercarnivores.
This list is in no particular order. Every single one of these foods I deem as very highly inflammatory and very, very difficult to break down. And so right at the very top would be mushrooms. If you were to compare a mushroom to a fruit or vegetable, for example, they are quite different in that they're not fibrous in the same way. They're really quite rubbery. The thing is, it doesn't matter how long you cook mushrooms for, however you finish chewing them, that's the way it goes through your whole digestive tract. They also block and trap wind and gas. They're very gas promoting, and so they can cause a lot of discomfort there. I'm going to go ahead and assume that if you're eating vegetables for any reason, that you are cooking them. Otherwise, some of these vegetables would probably make higher on the list. I'm going to mention coleslaw actually right up there at the top for that reason. It's something I've failed to mention on my channel before, but if you think about it, it's just raw cabbage. I know it might taste nice. It's nice to have with our barbecue foods and burgers and fries, but honestly, coleslaw, if you have gut issues, I would stay far away from that stuff. It's like rabbit food, and we are not rabbits. We don't have huge cecums and huge colons, so we don't ferment this stuff down, break it down properly and be nourished by fats the way rabbits would. We've got very short digestive tract really. If you look at the relative gut volume between primates and humans, for example, our colons are half the size.
In other primates, they have a much, much larger cecum.
So we don't have the ability to break down the fibers like herbivores and even omnivores that consume a lot of plant matter. For the same reason that coleslaw is an issue, onions I would put up the top there as well, because quite often people are consuming chopped onions or onion rings in a burger raw, in the sandwiches and things like that. Typically we consume fruits and nuts the way they are, the way they come. And so for that reason, to me, fruits are a real problem. And the ones that I can think of being the most inflammatory would be mangoes and pineapples. I understand a lot of people think that mangoes aren't very fibrous and that they're mostly soluble fibers. It wouldn't matter if Mr. Mango himself walked in the house right now and told me that I'm wrong. I'm sorry, but I've seen it with my own eyes. I've swallowed chunks of mango. I've had problems with mango. However you finish chewing a mango, it does not break down anymore, okay, until it gets to the colon. And then sure, once again, you're going to reabsorb the water, sodium and stuff like that. It's going to become condensed and you won't recognize it. You won't see it the way I'm seeing it. But if you've got Crohn's, if you suffer from gut issues, the damage has already been done. You've got this large piece of plant material traveling through the gut. And if you've got any ulcers or weak spots, maybe you've had surgery and you have some scar tissue that's healed back in a different structure, and you're going to have more trouble having food pass through certain parts of your digestive tract. Things like mango and pineapple are a real problem. I would say nuts and seeds would be way up there as well. Again, we're typically consuming them the way they come. It's not like we cook them and soften them up. And we may think that we're chewing this stuff thoroughly, but I can assure you, I've been there since having my surgery with a bag, chowing down nuts. I often used to snack on things like almonds and have seeded bread sandwiches and all this kind of stuff. You think you're chewing it properly, But often these little pieces, they're kind of not getting in between your teeth and they're swimming around, and then you swallow them. And sure enough, you'll find whole sunflower seeds, sesame seeds, just pieces of nut that are cut up and you've got all these little sharp corners and stuff like that. To me, that's a real problem. Again, if you've got IBD, you're going to have what's like sandpaper traveling through your gut, and that's just going to irritate your vulnerable spots, your ulcers and things like that. Another thing I've forgotten to mention on my channel, and a couple of people have actually dropped it in the comments, and they are dead right to, coconut. Think about how fibrous and robust coconuts are, very, very hard. And even if you've got those toasted flakes, that stuff doesn't break down. It's not like it dissolves. I don't care what anybody says. I've seen these flakes and chunks of coconut in my bag, and again, an issue for the same reason as nuts. Like coleslaw and onions, carrots are an issue for a similar reason, where a lot of people are consuming carrots raw. They prefer that sweet, juicy crunch. And I understand, I used to eat raw carrots. Sometimes you've got the little sticks and you dip it in your sauce or your hummus or whatever it is that you're doing with carrots. But again, it's like rabbit food. We're not geared up to digest that stuff properly. So if you are going to consume carrots for whatever reason, definitely cook this stuff to death. This next one might surprise people a little bit, where it's not actually a plant food, it's an animal product. Pasteurized, but certainly homogenized dairy. And the reason why I say that, first of all, pasteurized milk is a mistake. We've taken away B vitamins, vitamin C, the enzyme lactase to break down lactose, hence why so many people have lactose issues with dairy. But more importantly, if you have IBD, any gut issues, certainly leaky gut, the homogenized dairy, the particles are broken down so finely that these can actually slip through leaky gut. So definitely check the back of your dairy products if you can't source raw. And I'm not saying we should all go and try and consume dairy. It's not needed, it's not necessary. But if you're someone that does like to consume dairy, just have a look at the back. I would make sure that it's not homogenized, at least. Make sure it's full fat, and perhaps go for a brand that isn't quite so popular, where they're pasteurizing it at crazy temperatures and then they're homogenizing the hell out of it, and then you've got all these very, very harmful, tiny, fine particles that can slip through leaky gut. I think it goes without saying, celery would definitely make the list, for obvious reasons, really. If you think about all those strings, those robust string structures, that's all just cellulose. And that's like wood pulp. It doesn't break down. We can't digest that stuff. We don't have the microorganisms to do so. And even if you were to chew that thoroughly, you're almost just creating this woven nest structure, if you like, and it's like wire wool. Honestly, you're going to swallow that down and you're going to cause friction and aggravate potential symptoms, certainly if you've got IBD and things like that. I would say anything with skins and seeds, certainly for people with Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis. If you think about tomatoes are an issue, that skin is very, very tough. That does not break down whatsoever or go through your whole digestive tract like that. And again, it's protective of the plant. The moment you pierce that skin, the same goes for the seeds. The moment you break the seed, toxins are released. So tomatoes are one of the nightshades, like peppers. They're full of toxins. And so if you are going to consume this stuff for whatever reason, de-skin, de-seed, and then cook them thoroughly. Unfortunately, strawberries make the list. They're very, very fibrous. They also contain not only cellulose, but quite high levels of lignin. Think about if you were to just swallow a whole strawberry. I know that seems like an absurd argument, but if you swallowed a whole strawberry, that's not going to break down. That doesn't just dissolve. I mean, really, if we're going to be consuming any fruits, we should be sourcing them locally when they're in season and when they're ripe. We shouldn't be consuming fruits all year round. It goes against nature. Over here in the UK, strawberries would be naturally available for maybe 3 weeks of the year. So eat them for 3 weeks of the year and then be done with them. In modernity, we seem to be able to just access all the fruits all year round, even when they're coming from exotic countries. We don't really have any business consuming things like lemons and bananas in the UK, yet I see in so many people's pantries on the table, it's a daily thing, maybe breakfast or something like that. These people are consuming this all year round, and no fruit grows all year round. Even lemons, lemons don't grow here, yet you've got people squeezing it into their water every single day, just fructose. And yeah, it's a strange situation, but that's the modern world we live in. And so I think when you're accessing your foods in the store, you need to think a little bit, is this in line with nature? Is this in line with my genetics? Because really, during wintertime, we shouldn't be eating things like strawberries. We shouldn't be eating any fruits that come from other countries. That's very important, to eat the foods that grow where you are. And again, when they're ripe, we shouldn't be consuming foods when they're not at their peak. And they're going to be sweeter. That's another indication that that's the right time to consume those things. In nature, it would have been advantageous when you stumble across berries or even honey or something like that to consume those things, because they're high in fructose. That's going to allow us to pack on some weight for winter. But in modernity, winter never comes, and you've got these people walking around, everybody's sick. And a big reason for that is consuming all of these plant foods all year round. And there's just nothing normal about that. I think we've all seen evidence of sweet corn on the cob on the way out. It's evident that stuff doesn't break down. So things with skin, that robust skin, that casing, that doesn't break down, and we're certainly not equipped to digest that properly and gain any nourishment from that. I would like to mention brown rice for multiple reasons. I've had issues with brown rice. Not only has it got the inner and outer part of the grain, which we don't digest, so for people with gut issues, that's going to be inflammatory, but it also comes with gluten and wheat and these plant proteins that also cause gut problems. That's going to damage your villi, which are responsible for pulling in the nutrients, because we have a real problem as humans breaking apart the amino acids in that chain of that particular protein, and the lectins, which have also been shown to contribute towards leaky gut. So all of this stuff goes hand in hand. Yes, when you cook, the lectins do degrade and come down somewhat, but you're not going to destroy all of these things, And if you're having brown rice and whole wheat sandwiches and seeded bread and cereal, oats in the morning, this stuff every single day, these things are going to accumulate, and they're certainly going to cause issues down the line. They also contain phytoestrogens, which are going to disrupt your endocrine systems. Not only that, but it's going to elevate your blood glucose with all the carbohydrate content. So that's a problem in of itself. It's going to be inflammatory for certain other people, sensitive perhaps with regulating the blood glucose and things like that. What about red meat? We've heard that red meat gets wedged and stuck in your colon, it rots and causes all these inflammatory problems. Well, no. I can tell you 100%, and bury that myth, okay? Red meat breaks down very easily, 100% in the stomach acid. It's liquefied by the time it gets to your small intestine, which it should be. That's where we absorb all the nutrients. That's what we want. We want the stomach acid to break down those amino acids and the fatty acids, and then we can absorb them. I can tell you 100% because I've seen it with my own eyes every single day for nearly 20 months. I consume up to 1 kilo of red meat a day, and we've got very, very acidic stomach acid. And so when red meat enters my bag, it doesn't look anything like meat. It's like liquid, genuinely. And for any ordinary people with their colons intact, of course, it's not going to come out liquid for those people. It's going to enter the colon. We then reabsorb the water and the sodium, etc. And then it becomes more solidified and condensed and a bit harder and not so liquidy. Whereas obviously I don't have a colon, and so I'm seeing the state of the foods as it would enter the colon. So of course it's going to be liquidy, right? That's what food should be doing. That's what human compatible substrate is designed to do. We're designed to eat meat. We've been eating this stuff since the beginning of time as humans. So all of these fallacious beliefs, I can put to bed. I've seen it. I've eaten plants. I've chewed them up thoroughly, and yet there's evidence of plants intact, broccoli florets, a big piece of swede or a large piece of mango, mushrooms, onions, all this kind of stuff, nuts and seeds. They don't break down. But what does break down 100% of the time is red meat. And in fact, all animal products break down 100%.
I've never seen a bezoar that was composed in any way of meat or bacon or eggs. Literally,
No.
If it is caused by food, it's plant-based food.
You should be eating in line and in keeping with your genetics. And that includes high quality animal products, buy what you can afford. Red meat is king. Eggs are great if you can tolerate eggs. If you're super sensitive, maybe stay away from the whites at least. Dairy is obviously questionable for some people, but if you can access it raw is going to be more advantageous if you have lactose problems, if you get GERD or anything like that. But my advice would be, certainly if you've got gut issues, IBD being probably the most severe, right? Crohn's, ulcerative colitis, which is what I used to have, diverticulitis even, IBS. But if you just commonly suffer from digestive related issues, lots of trapped wind, indigestion and obstructions, definitely stay away from the foods on that list. I also want to just mention seed oils. Now, I know seed oils, you'd think that's liquidized and that's great, right? That's fine. Well, seed oils, this is a brand new thing. Human beings, in the grand scale of things, have just started consuming seed oils. To produce the amount of oil out of a seed is just not natural. They're very, very highly inflammatory. They oxidize the moment they hit the pan. I would stay away from any oil in a bottle. It's a complete mistake to consume that stuff. It's very, very toxic and inflammatory. The introduction of so many fats coming from seed oils with all the carbohydrates, you're activating higher levels of your Randall cycle, if you like, and this is actually protective for you. But if you prolong these kinds of habits, then that's going to cause you big problems down the line. Anyway, I do hope you found this video informative, and I will see you in the next one. Cheers, guys. We're not herbivores. We're omnivores, sure, but we are omnivorous predators, specifically hypercarnivore.